But for you who hear my voice, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings, and you shall go forth again. Skip around like cats, coming from their stalls at last. You shall be my very own. On the day that I cause you to be my special home, I shall spare you as a man has compassion on his son, who does the best he can. Oh, how marvelous, oh, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be, singing, oh, how marvelous, oh, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me.
But for you who hear my voice, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings, and you shall go forth again. Skip about like cats, coming from their stalls at last. You shall be my very own. On the day that I cause you to be my special home, I shall spare you as a man has compassion on his son, who does the best he can.
Oh, how marvelous, oh, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be, singing, oh, how marvelous, oh, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me, singing, oh, how marvelous, oh, how wonderful, and my song shall ever be, singing, oh, how marvelous, oh, how wonderful is my Savior's love for me. Good morning. We're going to shift gears a little bit today. I think a few people need a break from talking about the narrow path. So we're going to move on. We're going to keep walking the path instead of talking about it. Looking forward into this week's gospel reading is the story of the centurion's servant. And this story is found in Matthew chapter 8 and Luke chapter 7, and they're slightly different versions of the same story. There's also a story in the Gospel of John that could be a variation of this story, but as usual with John, it's hard to tell. Today, I'm going to unpack the story as it's reported in Luke chapter 7. It's got more details. It's just a more fuller version of the story. So let's dive right in. Well, the first thing that strikes me in this passage is actually near the end of the story in verse 9. It says Jesus is amazed with the centurion. Amazed. In fact, Jesus says, "I have not found such great faith, not even in Israel." Now that's quite a statement Jesus is making. There's only two occasions that Jesus describes people's faith as being great. This occasion with the centurion, and another story where Jesus is interacting with a Canaanite woman and they are bantering about table scraps for dogs. We'll leave that story for another time. But I think it's remarkable that Jesus describes this Roman soldier's faith as being great. Jesus doesn't often commend people for their faith. I mean, think about how Jesus describes the faith of his own disciples. On more than one occasion, he says to them, "O ye of little faith." So this is remarkable and noteworthy. I think we should pay attention to this centurion. What can he teach us? I mean, Jesus is impressed with this guy, and Jesus doesn't seem to be overly impressed with too many people. So what is it about this man's faith that we can learn from? So that's what we're going to do for the next couple weeks, actually. And today I want to look at the first lesson that we learn from this centurion's great faith. But let's begin by looking at the story in a nutshell. So this centurion, he's living in the town of Capernaum, and he has a young servant who is ill, and the centurion fears that this servant is going to die. We also read in the text that the centurion highly values or deeply cares about this young servant. So the centurion is starting to feel hopeless and fearing the worst, that he may lose this young servant that he cares about. Now this probably would have been a hard and humbling moment for this centurion. You see, Roman culture had a clear code, especially for Roman warriors, and this code was called the way of the ancestors, or the ancestral custom. And the pillars of this code were strength, honor, trustworthiness, duty, discipline, gravitas. This was the Roman way. And centurions were often promoted because of their demonstration of valor in battle, as well as their intelligence and their leadership qualities. So this centurion was undoubtedly a powerful man, both physically and mentally, politically and socially. But he's reached a point in this story where he's hit a wall. He can't rely on his own strength, his rank, his power, his position to make this situation better. He can't fix this. He can't fight his way through this. He's forced to feel his hopelessness, his despair, his fear of loss. So what does he do? Well, he reaches out and he asks for help. But what's interesting is who he asks for help from. He doesn't turn to Romans. He asks the Jewish leaders, the Jewish elders in Capernaum to help him. Now, this is fascinating. I mean, we can't really envision or imagine how bizarre and awkward this is. I mean, this would be like a pig farmer reaching out to PETA animal activists for assistance. This centurion is the sworn enemy of these Jewish people and this Jewish community. He is the ultimate symbol of everything that they despise. He represents violence and injustice, empire, their oppressors, the military power that has conquered and slaughtered thousands of Jewish people. But as we keep reading, we see that not only are they willing to help this centurion, they're actually eager to help him. They go to bat for him. They passionately try to convince Jesus to help this Roman warrior. I mean, we read in the text, "You need to help this man," they say. Why? Well, as we keep reading, we see the answer to that. It's because this Roman warrior has invested in their community. This centurion respects them, and he respects their culture and community. And not just in principle, not just in theory, he has practically, tangibly invested in their community. He has built them a synagogue that they can go and worship in. This is huge. I mean, how you use your power and privilege can turn enemies into friends and allies. You see, when it comes down to it, what most human beings respond to is love, respect, and support. That's what really matters. Not whether someone shares your politics or your beliefs or your ethnicity or your religious background. We know when someone respects us, when someone cares about us. We can see when someone actually invests in our well-being, and that's what matters to us. Now, I'm not saying that politics and activism don't matter. They do to some degree. But your politics won't turn strangers and enemies into friends. What eradicates hostility and mistrust is doing what this centurion did. He respects people by valuing what they value and investing in what they care about. If you want people to be there for you in life, you can't just demand it. You know, there's a lot of people who have this attitude, I deserve respect, I deserve support, I deserve assistance. And of course, that is true. But so does everyone else. This centurion's great faith highlights a very important attitude that we must cultivate. And that attitude is this: I must demand respect from myself for others, including my enemies, before I demand respect for myself. I must help others before I expect others to help me. I must support others before I can expect others to support me. You see, when you expect people to support you and you don't support others, when you expect people to respect you and you don't show respect to other people, when you expect people to invest in your well-being and you don't invest in other people's well-being, well, eventually the universe itself moves against you because you're defying a law of the universe, the law of harvest, that you reap what you sow. As Radiohead reminds us, you can only defy gravity so long with plastic surgery. Eventually, gravity always wins. And it's the same with the law of harvest. Eventually, you will reap what you sow. If you don't invest in others, eventually people will stop investing in you. If you don't respect others, eventually people stop respecting you. If you don't support others, eventually people will stop supporting you. But the opposite is also true. If you invest in others, other people will invest in you. If you respect others, other people will respect you. If you support and help other people, then more and more support and help will come your way. Because eventually, this law of the universe, the law of the harvest, that you reap what you sow, eventually it will come to you in some form or another. This centurion is demonstrating one aspect of great faith. He's trusting the tendency of the universe that God created to move towards balance. What I mean by that is this: the centurion trusts, and that's what faith means. The centurion trusts and acts. That's what it means to truly trust something, is that we act on it. He trusts and he acts on this universal principle of God's creation that eventually you reap what you sow. And this story manifests the effectiveness of living according to this principle. A community that he has invested in that considers him to be their enemy, they are now investing in his happiness and well-being. For years, he has supported and respected and contributed to this Jewish community, and now he is reaping the harvest. And it's almost unimaginable. that a, that a group of first century Jewish leaders who are oppressed, suffering in occupied territory by the Romans, would band together. Hey, we need to help this centurion. He's in trouble. I mean, it's bordering on the miraculous. That's what great faith does. So the first lesson from this centurion is ask for help when you need it. But in your time of need, help usually comes from people you've helped. Support and respect will come from people that you have shown respect to and that you have supported. The people who are willing to invest in your well-being and happiness in your time of need are typically the people you've invested in. When we have great faith, we see that everything we do for others, everything we sacrifice and give for the sake of others, will return to us in some form or another as harvest. Great faith sees that every person I meet, I may need this person's help someday. So it's actually in my best interest to be kind, to be helpful, to be supportive. It's actually wise to invest liberally and generously in other people, even if it seems that they have nothing to offer me, because you never know. And I'm not saying that should be our motive. Oh, this person might be able to help me someday. The point I'm making here is the way of Jesus, it isn't just about sacrificing and giving everything away and having nothing for ourselves. I really do believe the way of Jesus is teaching us the wise way to live, a strategic way to live that's actually in our best self-interest. The way of Jesus is the way of great faith. And great faith trusts in God, and it trusts in the laws of the universe that God has created, and it trusts in the goodness of other human beings. It trusts that human beings really are created in the image of our good and generous God, and that when we give, when we serve others, that will come back to us. There is a harvest. We do reap what we sow. And I think that is a part of what Jesus is commending this centurion for. That's one dynamic of living a life of great faith.
All this pain, wonder if I'll ever find my way. I wonder if my life could really change at all. All this hurt, could all that is lost ever be found? Could a garden come?